In this section of the course, we move from ancient Mesopotamia to classical Greece, the age of the polis. And throughout the next several sections of this course, we'll explore in detail the rise of the Greek city-state, the polis, and the political philosophies that grew up in the ancient Greek world, above all in classical Athens. We move from the world of ancient Mesopotamia, the great riverine civilizations, the first large complex state societies that produced the earliest written law codes. These kinds of large palace-based civilizations moved into the Mediterranean world, into the Eastern Mediterranean, in the second millennium. The Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations, which are known to us from their archaeological remains, were amazing palace-based societies centered around the Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean. They too were much like the Mesopotamian societies with royal systems of governance and surely their own law codes. But the detail of these civilizations are lost to us. Around 1200 BC, the complex palace-based societies of the Eastern Mediterranean world collapsed with the loss of Mycenaean power. The memory of this great collapse, this civilizational and social collapse, is remembered in the legends that surround the destruction of the city of Troy. And in fact, at the site of Troy, there was a phase of great destruction around 1200 BC that was somehow the basis for later memories of the Trojan War, the legends that grew up. For nearly 400 years, from around 1200 BC to around 800 BC, Greece returned to what we call the Greek Dark Ages, a period of primitive societies, a period of simple societies as opposed to complex and state-based societies. The Greek world was plunged into an age of darkness, and that is a value judgment. These were simpler societies, and they were societies with lower levels of culture. And above all, they had lower levels of culture because they lacked an alphabet. They lacked a system of writing. And so they're a dark age because for 400 years, we have no writing from the Greek world. It marked a return to very early, very primitive, very simple conditions. But it also means that starting in the 8th century BC, we can watch a new birth of civilization. In the 8th century BC, the Greek world underwent a period of great transformation. In part, we can watch this because the Greeks imported the alphabet from the Phoenician civilization in what's now Lebanon. The rise of the alphabet meant the invention of writing had come into the Greek world. And the earliest Greek texts that survive also date from the middle or later 8th century BC. Let's say for our purposes, around 750 or 725 BC. We have preserved from the earliest periods of Greece the poems, the epic poems of Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad is the earlier of the two poems, and in some ways it is the first monument of ancient literature, of classical literature. And it preserves for us the very first stirrings of a great cultural renaissance that would make Greece the absolute cultural center of the world. Homer's poems also preserve for us something of what life was like in this early society. Now, it's very difficult to say that Homer's poems are a reflection of the society around him, because Homer's poems are set in a legendary past. In fact, they're set in an age of heroes. The Iliad tells the story of the siege of the city of Troy. It's set, in other words, over 4 centuries in the past, from the time when Homer was composing his poems. We know that throughout the Greek Dark Ages, there persisted a tradition of oral poetry, and Homer's lengthy epic poems come out of this long tradition of legends that are told through the traditions of oral poetry. Bards would memorize extraordinarily long poems telling about the great heroic exploits of the past. And Homer's Iliad reflects both of these historical strata. The earliest level, the memory of the great palace societies of the late Bronze Age around Troy, but also something of the Dark Age societies that intervened in the 4 centuries between the fall of Troy and the poems of Homer. Most importantly for us, though, Homer's poems are written at a very great moment of transformation, when the Greek polis begins to rise. So Homer's epic poem, the Iliad, already witnesses for us the rise of the Greek polis. And so, as a historical artifact, his poem, the Iliad, is tremendously complex, with different strata, you might say. The Bronze Age legends of the city of Troy, the Dark Age primitive warrior societies that produce the oral poetry out of which Homer's poems arise, and the first stirrings of a new city-based polis society that Homer himself would live to witness the birth of.